The sun streamed through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Kate Middleton carefully opened the ornate wooden box that had been placed on her desk. Inside, wrapped in delicate tissue paper, lay a collection of items that would change her understanding of her role as a future princess forever. The box had arrived that morning with a simple note. From Diana's private collection for Catherine. Kate's hands trembled slightly as she lifted the first item, a small leather journal bound with a faded blue ribbon. The cover was worn smooth from years of handling, and as she opened it, she recognized the elegant handwriting immediately. These were Princess Diana's personal thoughts, written during her most challenging and transformative years as a member of the royal family. The journal entries revealed a side of Diana that the public had never seen. Here was a young woman, much like Kate herself, struggling to find her place in an ancient institution while trying to remain true to herself. Diana had written about her fears, her hopes, and, most importantly, her determination to use her position to make a real difference in people's lives. As Kate read through the pages, she discovered that Diana had been planning for years to leave something meaningful for the woman who would one day marry her son William. The entries spoke of Diana's vision for modernizing the monarchy, her dreams of creating a more compassionate royal family, and her deep understanding of the power that came with the princess title. One entry particularly caught Kate's attention. Diana had written, "I pray that whoever comes after me will understand that being a princess is not about wearing beautiful gowns or attending glamorous events. It's about using your voice to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. It's about showing the world that the royal family can be both regal and real, both distant and deeply connected to the people we serve." The journal contained detailed observations about various charitable causes that Diana believed needed continued support. She had written extensively about her work with AIDS patients, her advocacy for the homeless, and her groundbreaking campaign against landmines. But what struck Kate most was Diana's insight into the delicate balance required to be an effective royal, how to honor tradition while pushing for necessary change. Kate learned that Diana had spent countless hours researching ways to make the monarchy more relevant to modern Britain. She had studied the charitable sector, met with social workers, and even attended university lectures on social policy, all while maintaining her royal duties. Diana's commitment to understanding the real problems facing ordinary people was evident on every page. The journal also revealed Diana's struggles with the intense media scrutiny that came with royal life. She had developed strategies for dealing with the constant attention, ways to protect her children while still fulfilling her public role, and methods for using media interest to highlight important causes rather than simply feeding the appetite for royal gossip. As Kate continued reading, she began to understand that Diana's approach to royal duty was revolutionary for its time. Rather than simply cutting ribbons and attending state dinners, Diana had transformed the role of a royal consort into that of a global advocate for change. She had shown that a princess could be both a fashion icon and a serious philanthropist, both a loving mother and a dedicated public servant. The journal entries from Diana's later years revealed her growing confidence and her clear vision for the future of the monarchy. She had written detailed plans for charitable initiatives, ideas for modernizing royal protocols, and thoughtful reflections on how to raise royal children who would be both grounded and prepared for their unique responsibilities. Kate realized that this journal was not just a historical document. It was a roadmap. Diana had essentially left her a manual for navigating the complex world of royal life while staying true to one's values and making a meaningful impact. The princess had anticipated the challenges Kate would face and had provided wisdom gained through her own experiences. The most moving entries were those where Diana wrote about her sons. She expressed her hopes that they would choose partners who would understand and embrace the opportunity to serve others. Diana had written, "I hope my boys will find women who see beyond the crown and the title, who understand that true nobility comes from how we treat the most vulnerable in our society." Reading these words, Kate felt a profound connection to Diana. She understood that she was not just inheriting a title or a position. She was being entrusted with a legacy of compassion and service that Diana had spent her life building. The journal made it clear that Diana's greatest gift was not jewels or properties, but rather her example of how to be a princess who truly mattered in people's lives. As she closed the journal and reached for the next item in the box, Kate knew that her approach to royal life would be forever influenced by Diana's words. She was no longer just Catherine Middleton who happened to be dating a prince. She was the woman Diana had hoped would continue her work of showing the world that royalty could be a force for genuine good in the world. The second item in Diana's box was a thick folder containing hundreds of photographs, but these were not the polished royal portraits that filled the newspapers. These were candid shots that Diana had personally collected, images of her working with patients in hospitals, sitting on beds talking to children, holding hands with elderly people in care homes, and embracing AIDS patients when the world still feared to touch them. Each photograph told a story of genuine human connection. Kate studied a picture of Diana sitting cross-legged on a hospital floor, playing with a young cancer patient. The princess had removed her shoes and jacket, her hair slightly messy, completely focused on making the sick child smile. Another showed Diana in a homeless shelter, not posing for cameras, but actually serving food and listening intently to the stories of people who had lost everything. What struck Kate most was how natural Diana looked in these situations. There was no pretense, no royal distance, just a woman who genuinely cared about the people she met. The folder also contained letters from the people Diana had helped, handwritten notes expressing gratitude for her attention, her kindness, and her willingness to see them as individuals rather than simply cases or causes. Kate discovered that Diana had been building something unprecedented, a new model of royal engagement that was based on authentic relationships rather than ceremonial visits. The photographs showed Diana returning to the same places repeatedly, developing ongoing relationships with the people she met. She had not just visited children's hospitals once for publicity. She had become a regular presence, someone the children looked forward to seeing. Among the photographs was a series taken during Diana's groundbreaking work with AIDS patients in the 1980s. At a time when many people still believed the disease could be transmitted through casual contact, Diana had deliberately chosen to be photographed shaking hands with and hugging AIDS patients without gloves. The images had sent a powerful message around the world about compassion and understanding. Kate found a handwritten note attached to one of these photographs. Diana had written, "Sometimes the most important thing a princess can do is simply show up and treat people with dignity. These brave souls taught me more about courage than I ever taught them about hope." The folder also contained Diana's personal notes about each cause she supported. Kate learned that Diana had not chosen her charitable work randomly. She had carefully researched each organization, met with experts, and developed deep knowledge about the issues she championed. Diana's notes revealed her understanding of complex social problems and her strategic thinking about how royal attention could be most effectively used to create change. One section of the folder was dedicated to Diana's work with landmine victims. Kate read Diana's detailed notes about the international campaign to ban landmines, her meetings with survivors, and her careful planning of her famous walk through a cleared minefield in Angola. Diana had understood that shocking images could sometimes achieve more than diplomatic negotiations, and she had been willing to put herself at risk to draw attention to the suffering caused by these weapons. The photographs from that Angola trip were particularly powerful. Kate saw Diana walking carefully through the minefield, wearing protective gear, but looking determined rather than frightened. More moving were the pictures of Diana meeting with landmine survivors, men, women, and children who had lost limbs to weapons that continued to kill and maim long after wars had ended. Diana's notes revealed the careful thought that went into every aspect of her charitable work. She had studied the political complexities of the landmine issue, consulted with military experts, and worked with campaign organizations to ensure her involvement would actually help rather than hinder their efforts. Diana had transformed herself from shy young woman into a sophisticated advocate who understood how to use her fame effectively. Kate found another section dedicated to Diana's work with homeless people. The photographs showed the princess in shelters and on the streets, but again, Diana's notes revealed the depth of her commitment. She had spent time learning about the root causes of homelessness, the challenges faced by service providers, and the policy changes needed to address the problem effectively. One photograph showed Diana sitting in a soup kitchen at Christmas, not serving food to the homeless, but eating alongside them, sharing their Christmas dinner. Diana had written on the back, "They invited me to share their meal, and I realized I was receiving far more than I was giving." True giving is about sharing dignity, not just resources. The folder contained evidence of Diana's evolution from a young woman who simply wanted to help into a strategic thinker who understood how systemic change happened. Kate read Diana's analysis of different charitable approaches, her thoughts on the most effective ways to raise awareness, and her growing frustration with traditional royal engagements that created publicity but little real impact. Diana had clearly been developing a philosophy of royal service that was radically different from anything that had come before. She believed that members of the royal family should not just patronize charities, but should become genuine advocates for change. She had written extensively about the responsibility that came with privilege and the opportunities that royal status created to amplify important messages. As Kate studied these materials, she began to understand that Diana had been conducting an experiment in redefining what it meant to be royal in the modern world. Every photograph, every interaction, every carefully planned visit had been part of Diana's effort to show that the monarchy could be a force for social progress rather than simply a symbol of tradition. The folder ended with a section of photographs from Diana's final years, when her confidence and experience had made her an even more effective advocate. These images showed a woman who had found her voice and her purpose, who had learned to use every aspect of her royal role to shine light on important issues and create real change in people's lives. Looking at these photographs, Kate realized that Diana had left her much more than memories. She had left a blueprint for how to transform royal duty into something meaningful and transformative. The question now was whether Kate would have the courage to follow Diana's example and continue revolutionizing what it meant to be a princess in the 21st century. The third item Kate discovered in Diana's box was perhaps the most personal, a collection of audio recordings that Diana had made during her private moments. These were not the formal interviews that the world had heard, but intimate reflections that Diana had recorded for herself and, ultimately, for the woman who would one day marry her son. Kate found a small digital recorder and a set of headphones. The first recording was dated just months before Diana's death. As Kate listened, she heard Diana's voice, soft but determined. "If someone is listening to this, it means William has found love, and I pray she understands the weight and the privilege of what lies ahead." The recordings revealed Diana's deepest thoughts about marriage, motherhood, and royal duty. Diana spoke candidly about her own struggles and failures, but also about the lessons she had learned. She talked about the importance of maintaining one's identity within the royal structure, the challenge of raising children who would be both normal and royal, and the delicate balance between public service and personal happiness. In one particularly moving recording, Diana reflected on her relationship with the media. She explained how she had learned to use press attention strategically, sometimes playing along with their interest in her fashion and personal life in order to draw attention to her charitable causes. "The photographers want pictures of pretty dresses," Diana said, "but if wearing a beautiful gown gets them to also photograph me hugging an AIDS patient or meeting with homeless families, then it's worth it." Diana spoke honestly about her mistakes and regrets. She acknowledged that her marriage to Charles had been troubled from the beginning, but she emphasized the lessons she had learned about communication, compromise, and the importance of choosing love over duty alone. "I hope William learns from my mistakes," she said. "I hope he chooses a partner based on love and genuine compatibility, not just suitability." The recordings included Diana's thoughts on how to handle the intense scrutiny that came with royal life. She had developed what she called the art of selective sharing, being open enough to connect with people while maintaining appropriate privacy. Diana explained how she had learned to use her vulnerability as a strength, showing the public that even princesses faced real challenges and emotions. Kate was fascinated by Diana's insights into the internal workings of the royal family. Diana spoke about the unwritten rules, the complex hierarchies, and the ways to navigate family dynamics while staying true to one's own values. She offered practical advice about everything from how to handle difficult relatives to ways of maintaining friendships outside the royal bubble. One recording was dedicated entirely to Diana's thoughts about motherhood within the royal context. She spoke about her determination to give William and Harry as normal a childhood as possible while preparing them for their unique responsibilities. Diana explained her decision to take the boys to homeless shelters and hospitals, not for publicity, but to help them understand that their privilege came with the responsibility to serve others. "I want my sons to understand that being royal is not about being special," Diana said. "It's about being useful. It's about using whatever advantages you have been given to make life better for people who have fewer advantages." Diana also recorded her thoughts about the future of the monarchy. She believed that the royal family needed to modernize or risk becoming irrelevant. She spoke about her vision of a monarchy that was more transparent, more emotionally accessible, and more actively engaged in solving social problems. Diana saw her son's generation as the key to this transformation. The recordings revealed Diana's sophisticated understanding of public relations and media strategy. She had learned to craft messages that would resonate with ordinary people while still respecting royal protocol. Diana explained how she had developed what she called the common touch, the ability to connect with people from all backgrounds while maintaining the dignity expected of a princess. Kate was particularly struck by Diana's recordings about the importance of authenticity. Diana had discovered that people responded more positively to genuine emotion than to royal reserve. She had learned to show appropriate vulnerability, to admit when she didn't know something, and to ask questions that demonstrated real interest in people's lives rather than just going through the motions of royal visits. In several recordings, Diana reflected on her work with different charitable causes and explained her strategic thinking. She had not chosen causes randomly, but had carefully considered where royal attention could make the biggest difference. Diana explained how she had researched each issue thoroughly, consulted with experts, and developed long-term commitments rather than just making one-off visits. The recordings also included Diana's thoughts about fashion and its role in her public work. She explained how she had learned to use clothing strategically, choosing outfits that would send specific messages or honor particular cultures. Diana revealed that even her most casual looks were carefully considered to ensure they were appropriate for her audience and her message. One of the most emotional recordings was Diana's reflection on her relationship with her sons. She spoke about her hopes and fears for their future, her desire to protect them while preparing them for their roles, and her determination that they would grow up understanding both their privileges and their responsibilities. Diana expressed her wish that her sons would find partners who would support their work and understand the unique challenges of royal life. Toward the end of the recordings, Diana spoke directly to the unknown woman who would one day marry William. She offered encouragement, practical advice, and, most importantly, permission to be herself while embracing the role of princess. "Don't try to be me," Diana said. "Be yourself, but understand that you have been given a platform that billions of people would envy. Use it wisely. Use it for good. Use it to make a difference." As Kate listened to these intimate reflections, she realized that Diana had essentially created a masterclass in modern royal life. These were not just random thoughts, but carefully considered wisdom from a woman who had transformed the monarchy through her own journey of growth and discovery. Diana had faced every challenge that Kate would encounter, and she had documented her learning process to help the woman who would follow in her footsteps. The recordings made it clear that Diana saw her legacy not in terms of her own achievements, but in terms of the foundation she was laying for future generations of royals. She had been preparing the way for someone like Kate, a commoner who would marry into the royal family and help continue the work of modernization and humanization that Diana had begun. The fourth item in Diana's treasure box was the most practical yet profound gift of all, a detailed collection of contacts, relationships, and networks that Diana had carefully built throughout her years as a princess. This was not simply an address book, but a living map of the people, organizations, and connections that could help Kate make a real difference in the world. The contact list was organized by cause and included detailed notes about each person and organization. Diana had documented not just names and phone numbers, but the stories behind each relationship, the particular expertise each contact could offer, and the ways they had collaborated with her in the past. It was like receiving the keys to a secret network of change-makers who had been waiting to continue Diana's work. Kate discovered that Diana had maintained relationships with social workers, doctors, charity directors, politicians, business leaders, and activists from around the world. Each contact came with Diana's personal notes about their character, their passion, and their effectiveness. Diana had created what amounted to a global advisory board of people committed to making the world better. One section was dedicated to Diana's contacts in the healthcare field. Kate read about Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had worked alongside Diana in several London hospitals and had become not just a professional colleague, but a trusted friend. Diana had written, "Sarah understands that healing is about more than medicine. She knows how a simple human connection can be as powerful as any treatment. She will teach you how to be present with people who are suffering." Another section focused on Diana's network in the field of homelessness and social services. Kate learned about Michael Thompson, a former homeless man who had become a successful advocate for policy change. Diana had written about their first meeting and how Michael had educated her about the complex realities of life on the streets. "Michael will tell you the truth about poverty," Diana had noted, "not the sanitized version that charities sometimes present to royal visitors." The international section of Diana's contact list revealed the global scope of her influence. Kate found details about relationships Diana had built with activists, healthcare workers, and political leaders in dozens of countries. Diana had maintained correspondence with people working on issues ranging from child labor in developing countries to domestic violence in wealthy nations. She had created a worldwide network of people who understood that social change required both local action and global coordination. What impressed Kate most was the diversity of Diana's contacts. The list included everyone from Nobel Prize winners to local community volunteers, from heads of major charities to individuals who were simply trying to make a difference in their own neighborhoods. Diana had understood that effective change required input and support from people at every level of society. Each contact entry included Diana's assessment of how that person or organization could best work with the royal family. She had identified which contacts preferred private meetings versus public events, which are most effective at providing education versus advocacy, and which had the credibility to help royal involvement be taken seriously by skeptical audiences. Kate found a particularly interesting section dedicated to media contacts who Diana trusted to cover charitable issues responsibly. These were journalists and photographers who understood the difference between genuine royal news and tabloid gossip, who were willing to focus on causes rather than just personalities. Diana had built relationships with media professionals who shared her commitment to using public attention constructively. The contact list also included Diana's network within the royal family and the broader aristocracy. She had identified family members, friends, and social connections who could be valuable allies in charitable work. Diana had mapped out the complex web of relationships within British high society and identified people who had both influence and genuine commitment to social causes. One of the most valuable sections contained Diana's contacts in the business world, corporate leaders who had supported her charitable work, and who understood the value of responsible business practices. Diana had cultivated relationships with executives who saw corporate social responsibility as more than just public relations, people who were willing to use their resources and influence to address social problems. Kate discovered that Diana had also maintained connections with people who had initially been critics or skeptics of royal involvement in charitable work. These relationships showed Diana's wisdom in engaging with people who challenged her approaches and helped her improve her effectiveness. She had valued honest feedback over comfortable praise. The contact list included detailed notes about international diplomatic connections that Diana had developed through her charitable work. She had built relationships with ambassadors, UN officials, and international aid workers who could provide guidance on how royal involvement could be most helpful in global initiatives without inadvertently causing diplomatic complications. Diana had also documented her relationships with academic researchers and policy experts who had helped her understand the underlying causes of the problems she was trying to address. Kate found contacts at universities, think tanks, and research institutions who had provided Diana with the knowledge she needed to be an informed advocate rather than just a well-meaning celebrity. Perhaps most importantly, the contact list included the personal details of hundreds of individuals who had been directly helped by Diana's charitable work. These were the people who could tell Kate firsthand about the impact of royal attention and involvement. Diana had maintained connections with families she had met in hospitals, individuals she had helped in crisis situations, and communities that had benefited from her advocacy. Each of these personal contacts came with notes about their ongoing situations and needs. Diana had not simply met these people once and moved on. She had maintained relationships and continued to follow their progress. This showed Kate that effective charitable work required long-term commitment and genuine care rather than just ceremonial appearances. The contact list also revealed Diana's systematic approach to building expertise in each area of her charitable work. For every cause she supported, Diana had identified and connected with the leading experts, the most effective practitioners, and the people who could help her understand both the problems and the potential solutions. Kate realized that this contact list was not just a resource. It was evidence of Diana's revolutionary approach to royal charitable work. Instead of simply lending her name and presence to existing organizations, Diana had built her own network of relationships that allowed her to be an active participant in creating change rather than just a passive supporter. As Kate studied the detailed notes and relationships that Diana had documented, she understood that she was inheriting not just a list of names, but a carefully constructed system for making a difference. Diana had spent years building these relationships, earning trust, and proving her commitment. Now, Kate had the opportunity to step into this network and continue the work that Diana had begun. The contact list made it clear that Diana's greatest gift to Kate was not just wisdom or inspiration, but the practical tools and relationships needed to transform good intentions into real impact. Diana had done the hard work of building credibility and trust with the people who could help Kate become an effective advocate for change. The final item in Diana's box was the most precious of all, a sealed letter addressed simply to William's wife. Kate's hands shook slightly as she opened the envelope, knowing that she was about to read Diana's most personal message to her. The letter was written in Diana's distinctive handwriting, and as Kate read, she could almost hear Diana's voice speaking directly to her. "My dear Catherine," the letter began, "if you are reading this, it means my son has found love, and you have chosen to join our family despite all its complexities. I want you to know how grateful I am that William has found someone who sees beyond the crown to the man he truly is." Diana continued, "I have left you these items not to burden you with expectations, but to share what I have learned about the extraordinary opportunity that comes with being a princess. You will discover, as I did, that this role can be whatever you choose to make it. You could be a ceremonial figure who simply fulfills duties, or you could be a force for change who transforms lives. I hope you will choose the latter." The letter revealed Diana's deepest hopes for the future of the monarchy. She wrote about her belief that the royal family needed people like Kate, individuals who came from outside the institution and could bring fresh perspectives and genuine connection to ordinary people. Diana saw Kate's non-royal background as a strength rather than a disadvantage. The fact that you were not born into this life is your greatest asset, Diana wrote. You understand what it means to work for a living, to worry about everyday concerns, to live without privilege. Never lose that understanding, because it is what will make you effective in this role. The people of Britain and the world need royals who remember what normal life is like. Diana addressed the challenges Kate would face with remarkable honesty. She warned about the media attention, the criticism, the constant scrutiny, and the pressure to be perfect. But she also provided strategies for dealing with these challenges based on her own hard-won experience. You will make mistakes, Diana wrote, and they will be reported and analyzed and criticized. Learn from them, apologize when necessary, and move forward. Do not let the fear of imperfection prevent you from taking risks or trying new approaches. The work is too important to be paralyzed by the possibility of criticism. The letter included Diana's thoughts on balancing royal duty with family life. She wrote extensively about the importance of protecting children while still allowing them to understand their responsibilities. Diana shared her strategies for maintaining family privacy while fulfilling public obligations, and her insights into raising children who would be both grounded and prepared for their unique roles. Your children will be born into extraordinary privilege, Diana wrote, but they must also understand extraordinary responsibility. Show them the world beyond palace walls. Let them see how other people live, work, and struggle. Teach them that their advantages are not entitlements, but tools to be used in service of others. Diana devoted several pages to her vision for the future of royal charitable work. She believed that Kate's generation of royals could achieve things that previous generations had never imagined. She wrote about the potential to use modern technology, social media, and global connections to amplify important messages and create international movements for change. You live in an age of unprecedented connectivity, Diana observed. A single photograph, a carefully crafted message, a moment of genuine human connection can now reach millions of people instantly. Use these tools wisely. Show the world that the monarchy can be a force for progress, not just tradition. The letter included Diana's reflections on the relationship between William and Kate based on her observations of her son and her hopes for his happiness. She encouraged Kate to maintain her independence and her own interests while supporting William's royal duties. Diana emphasized the importance of being partners in both their personal relationship and their public work. William needs someone who will challenge him, support him, and remind him of who he is beyond his royal role, Diana wrote. Be his equal, not his follower. Bring your own passions and expertise to the partnership. The monarchy will be stronger when it includes diverse perspectives and talents. Diana also addressed the delicate subject of her own legacy and memory. She made it clear that she did not expect Kate to try to replace her or to replicate her approach exactly. Instead, she encouraged Kate to learn from her experiences while developing her own unique style and focus. Do not try to be me, Diana wrote. The world already had a Diana. What it needs now is a Catherine. Build on what I started, but make it your own. Follow your own instincts, pursue your own passions, and find your own way to make a difference. The causes that speak to your heart may be different from mine, and that is exactly as it should be. The letter concluded with Diana's most personal thoughts about love, loss, and legacy. She wrote about her regrets, her hopes, and her deep love for William and Harry. Diana expressed her wish that Kate would help her sons heal from the trauma of losing their mother while also helping them understand the positive impact their mother had tried to make. I will not be there to see my sons grow into the men I know they can become, Diana wrote, but you will be. Help them understand that the best way to honor my memory is not to mourn what was lost, but to continue what was begun. Show them that love is stronger than loss, that hope is more powerful than grief, and that the work of making the world better is the most meaningful legacy any of us can leave. The letter ended with a blessing and a charge. Go forward with courage, compassion, and conviction. Use every advantage you have been given to lift up those who have fewer advantages. Be the princess the world needs you to be, and know that wherever I am proud to have you as part of our family. As Kate finished reading the letter, tears streaming down her cheeks, she realized that Diana's greatest gift was not any of the individual items in the box, but the totality of what they represented. Diana had given her not just tools and resources, but a complete philosophy of royal service based on authentic human connection, strategic thinking, and unwavering commitment to making a difference. Kate understood that she was now the custodian of Diana's vision for a more compassionate, relevant, and effective monarchy. The journal, photographs, recordings, contacts, and letter were not just mementos of Diana's life. They were the foundation for Kate's own journey as a princess who would continue revolutionizing what royal service could accomplish in a modern world. Sitting in the quiet of her study, surrounded by Diana's gifts, Kate felt the weight and privilege of the inheritance she had received. She was no longer just William's girlfriend or even his future wife. She was Diana's chosen successor, armed with everything she needed to continue transforming the monarchy from within. The greatest gift Princess Diana had left for Kate was the knowledge, wisdom, and inspiration to become the princess she was meant to be.